Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I am coming to you with a review of Jurassic World Dominion, the third in the Jurassic World franchise and the sixth film in the entire Jurassic Park franchise, and this is meant to be the conclusion to the entire storyline, starting with the first Jurassic Park back in, 1996, concluding now in 2022. At least that's how it's being promoted, and that's basically how the film plays out, as well as it features not only the characters that have become well known amongst the Jurassic World franchise, but also they bring back the original actors from the Jurassic Park films to have this nice little conclusion, this nice little end note movie. Now, that all being said, and even though I do think it is a fine ending to the franchise, which really should not have gone past the first film, which is just fantastic in itself, Lost World, for me, is kind of that guilty pleasure film. I actually enjoy a lot of aspects of it, except for the very ending when the dinosaurs basically enter into real life scenarios. And I feel like that's one of the issues that I had with the Jurassic World franchise as a whole, is the diving into Jurassic creatures existing in the real world, which really just dove off of a cliff in the second film, Fallen Kingdom. And I do think that it definitely gets picked back up a little bit in this film. If I had to rank the Jurassic World film specifically, I think I would still go with the first film being the best of the bunch, though they just all pale in comparison to the original Jurassic Park film. But I'd probably go with the original Jurassic World, then this film, and then Fallen Kingdom at the very end, because Fallen Kingdom just has a lot of problems with it. Even Colin Trevorrow himself, who is one of the creative minds behind this series of films, Jurassic World films, even came out and apologized to fans on social media for some of the things that were lacking in Fallen Kingdom. He then took the reins for this movie to actually direct it. He co-wrote it as well. And I definitely think that he was able to fix a lot of the issues that Fallen Kingdom had. That all being said, this film is still far from perfect. I think one of the biggest problems that I have with the movie is that it is way too long for what it actually needs to be. It's a good 20 to 30 minutes too long, and you really do start to feel it as time goes on. You start to ask questions about, wait a minute, why is it that these characters are getting this much time? Why are we spending too much time on this specific instance? It just honestly is quite nonsensical. And you honestly just feel like there's time that's just being wasted in the film with a lot of filler that really does not actually need to be in there. And speaking of things that really don't need to be in here, or at the very least cause some problems, I will say the villain of this story, who is essentially a knockoff version of the leader of Apple, is really the best way that I can describe it. He's kind of like a knockoff Tim Cook, I guess you could say. I think that's the guy who's currently running Apple, but that's what he reminded me of. And for me, he just comes across as just a very weak character, a weak villain. And even though there are certain elements of his arc that are gone through, I think mostly to connect back to the original Jurassic Park film and try and, I guess, tie those different elements in to say, hey, remember this? Hey, remember that? I remember, right? The member berries moments. It's not even just the actors from the original Jurassic Park films coming back. It's also certain beats and certain story elements that are also being brought back as well. And there's a specific storyline with this character that ties back to a couple of things from the original film. And for me, it was a little heavy-handed, and the actual performance and the actual character himself was really poor. Again, you never felt afraid of the guy. The guy never came across as menacing. There's a couple of things that I think the character could have done to feel more menacing, but they never actually fulfill that. They never actually, this guy never actually does anything that you would ever think that a villain in a movie like this would potentially do. And in the end, you're just like, okay, whatever, with this character, I really don't honestly care about it. As far as the other characters are concerned, they're fine. Chris Pratt does his best Chris Pratt. And I know a lot of people enjoy Chris Pratt and the performance and the personality that he has. I think it's a very strong one. But that all being said, it's just the same that we've seen in all the other Jurassic World films at this point. Bryce Dallas Howard does a little bit of a better job in this film compared to that of Fallen Kingdom, or at the very least her character seems to have a little bit of a better arc than in Fallen Kingdom, but it's really not saying all that much. It's really nice to see, though, the original actors from the Jurassic Park films in the film. And I think that that's probably one of the things that I enjoyed most about it. Jeff Goldblum, of course, just eats up the scenery and eats up every scene that he is in. And, you know, I love me some Jeff Goldblum, so I'll go ahead and take that. I think one of the biggest issues, though, that I really had with the movie overall was some of the messaging in it. It's no secret that this franchise has, especially in the last couple of films in the series, starting with Fallen Kingdom, really started to focus much more on different elements as far as, you know, clearly Bryce Dallas Howard's character being involved with an organization that is meant to replicate PETA, though trying to, I guess, make it seem like it's not as terrible of an organization. And with this film, I feel like they had those elements, but then they also try to add in a lot of things dealing with the climate and you know, rather dealing with just the ecosystem in general. Like, there's a lot of talk and conversation and a lot of implications about this big giant corporation, which is interesting to me that they try and pull the storyline and the story arc that it's the giant corporations that are evil and are destroying the planet and are destroying this or that, while at the same time it's these same actors and writers and people that are in bed with many of these same corporations and are really a part of these same corporations as well. So it's just interesting that they always try and push these green agenda items in films that are themselves a part of and a result of giant corporate programming and corporatism in general. So it always comes across as very disingenuous. And there are only a couple of moments really where I find it got really preachy, I guess, but luckily those moments are very few and far between. And really the bigger issues, I think, with this film, just like with the last couple of films, you know, not as bad as what was seen in Fallen Kingdom, is that it's a story that did not need to exist. And it's very clear that they just ran out of ideas and that they were just trying to add in new things to try and keep it, you know, somewhat interesting. And I think that you're going to have people that are going to be happy with the film because it does have your fair share of dino fighting and dinosaur sequences and scenes, you know, seeing some of the classic dinosaurs, seeing some of the newer dinosaurs that have been introduced as well. And one thing I did enjoy about this film, and I noticed it a lot more than in any of the other films, is they use a lot of practical effects in this movie. And I really appreciated that because there's a couple of moments where the visual effects are really crap. They're really bad. They kind of remind me of some of the weaker visual effects that we're seeing in the first film. But then there's other moments that just blew me away. I was like, okay, I honestly can't tell. The effects are so good in this specific scene, I almost even can't tell whether or not they're using puppetry or animatronics. And I like that they kind of did a little bit of a throwback to, I think, the original Jurassic Park film by integrating a little bit more, in this specific case, some of those practical visual effects. As you all know, I'm a much bigger fan when they use practical effects instead of using CGI or when they overuse CGI. And so even though there's some CGI elements in the movie that just drive me a bit crazy, overall, I think that there are definitely some things that a lot of people are probably going to find to be pretty enjoyable. People who might be able to look past the story problems and just the story quirks and again the villain just really being very, very weak. I think that some people might be able to overlook that. I myself am just not one of those persons. If I had to give this film a grade, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a C+. Again, it's really not a film I had all that much interest in going to see. I honestly think this film is going to be a giant box office hit. I don't think the word of mouth is going to be terrible for the film. I don't think the word of mouth is going to be fantastic, right? I think with, you know, the box office, especially Top Gun Maverick is getting crazy good box office word of mouth. This film, I just don't see it getting. Basically, let me put it this way. Jurassic World Dominion is significantly better than Doctor Strange 2. So think about the very negative word of mouth for Doctor Strange 2 that caused that film to collapse. I don't think this film's going to get anything as far as, basically, if we look at Top Gun Maverick at like a 90% positive rating, I would say this film's probably going to be at like a 50% positive rating, whereas Doctor Strange 2 probably is closer to like a 30%. I think that's the best way I can really think of it in my own mind. And we'll have to wait and see, of course, what the actual drop-off ends up being, what the opening weekend ends up being. But what are your thoughts? Have you seen Jurassic World Dominion? Do you agree with my assessment of the film, especially with where it sits in the franchise as well? Again, a weak villain, some crap CGI, an overlong story, I do think weigh this film down. But in the end, it's, again, not the best film in the World franchise, definitely not the best film in the entire Jurassic Park franchise, but it's definitely at least a huge step up from the terrible film that was Fallen Kingdom. So let me know your thoughts about that. Anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button on Odyssey. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you enjoyed this car video. I'm not going to do the clapping because Jeremy does that best over at Geeks and Gamers. So anyway, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to my June Keeper of the Bifrost and Chosen of Valhalla level members, Brandon, let's go Brandon, Christopher Bowman, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Father Luca, Mike Jackson, for the win, Mad Mitch Dunaway, or in Chat Reviews. Make sure to check out his YouTube channel. He just hit 1,000 subscribers. Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel as well. Stan Andrian, Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel. And also, of course, the amazing Tina B, Empress of the Universe. Check out her YouTube channel, especially her show, Soup to Nuts, that she does with the amazing Stephanie B. Thank y'all very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And a huge shout out to all of my subscribers as well over on Subscribestar at these levels. Matt 317, Storm Tracker, the R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, and also, of course, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. You guys are amazing. And a last shout out to my locals members. We have Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan. How about a hockey player? We have Mike Jackson for the win once again, Robert Barnes, and Brett D90. So I want to say thank you again for being my members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and the Chosen of Valhalla levels. If you want your name specially shouted out at the end of every single video and live stream, please check out my links at the Patreon and Subscribestar. You can find those in the top link in the video description, the Willow link, as I like to call it. We can also get access to things like giveaways, things like the podcast I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, and other cool stuff like that. Anyway, thank you all very much for supporting me for the month of June. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.